In the mid-60s, Verona High School set a New Jersey state record, losing 32 games in a row by astronomical scores.
I do recall the time we played Madison at home, and we did lose the game 75-0.
This is not the story of how a sports team overcame adversity and finally won.
Then 4 years or so, it was like, crazy. It was just like we couldn't win a game.
Inspiring stories of underdog teams persevering and finally winning have been told many times.
It was tough to really overcome that kind of adversity, when you're 16 years old and you were expecting to be better than that.
This is the story of a team that never won.
We were probably the first team that was consistently losing.
Yeah, during the losing streak, I attended probably just about all the games, and it was a little bit disheartening that after what Verona had in the past and then what went on, it was a little hard to take. Yeah.
Losses started to pile up. It became obvious that we were in a class of our own.
Our class, I think, had great people. I don't know if we really had all the athletes that maybe other classes did. You can't really kind of assess that, but there was definitely a turn where I think there was a de-emphasis on the football program.
Sophomore year, we lost every game.
As far as I understand, we still hold the record for most losses in a 3-year period. We ran the table.
The junior year, we lost every game.
People just didn't understand why we'd want to continue on in this vein.
And senior year, we lost every game.
Since my baby left me, I just dropped the ball. I got giants all around me, standing 10 feet tall. And when I try to run, they knock me off my feet. They bring me down to the ground, and it can't be beat.
0-29, never won a game on the varsity.
You'd think maybe they would have, thrown a game for us at least, so that we could at least have the joy of one game. It might have kind of started a roll. We might have been on a roll then if we had just won one game, but we didn't win any. It was really sad.
And the more we lost, the more that core constituency of players became closer to you. Everybody
tried to kind of help each other through that psychological difficult time.
What goes through your head? Why am I doing this? We haven't won a game in 2 years. What am I doing to myself? You put a lot of work into it and came away with no rewards.
We were in agony every day, but I believed he was right. I believed we were on the right quit. Some guys just walked off because they couldn't take it.
I also wonder what kind of character these guys have now, had during their being quitters and not supporting a team. So that's, something we'll never know.
I can't imagine what Verona players went through with 32 games. I got to hand it to you. I have great admiration for you guys for what you went through. I think, winning doesn't always build strength. I think that when we have hardships and we go through struggles, I think that really builds a strength, and I think I admire everything about you guys going through that. As a 16 and 17-year-old kid, I don't know of how many kids would have done that.
I remember it was like some sort of Roman battle where they must have had 80 players dressed.
They were organized and military in style.
Physically, I can't remember ever getting beat up that way.
They were big, they were bruisers, they were just running right all over us.
I just remember laying on the ground and him running over my back.
One handoff, bang, right through the middle, touchdown.
We got in the huddle in defense, and I said, it's going to be a long day. It got so out of control so fast that it was beyond my comprehension. We were getting hammered that badly.
Once that landslide begins, there is no stopping it.
went back into the locker room. The coach read us the riot act, and obviously we came back, and unfortunately they had another 35 points in the second half to the game.
And next thing you know, on my back, looking backwards, and he's running in the end zone.
So the combination of us not really being competitive, them being at the top of their game, really resulted, I think, in some pretty ugly scores.
And they just annihilated us. I mean, it was, but it happened so fast that it was like, you know, it just happened.
And I don't think we've ever beaten anybody that bad before. I know our senior year, I think the most we had beat Cedar Grove 61-0.
I don't think I was affected as much as I probably should have been by it. I'm sure it affected, you know, fans and spectators and parents. But it was just another loss. It just happened to be a little bit larger of a margin than our other losses. Chalk it up.
That 75 was rock bottom.
As a young kid, you're not thinking about 75-0. You're thinking, well, the game's over, we won, we're happy. Let's get on the bus, let's go home. And I think that's how I felt at that time. I didn't feel any more or less happy because we won.
Do you think that the coach of the other team ran the score up in that game?
If I recall, they put second and third team people into that game.
When you're winning big, and we beat Verona 64-6, it kind of reflects to, you know, you kind of feel for the other team a little bit.
So when they got in, it was an inspiration for them to score like everybody else and to show what they had and everything. So you really can't blame maybe not the coach, but you can look at the fact the kids took advantage of the situation to come into the game and be able to score and play maybe half a game. So I would have felt the same way.
We always played everybody that we had on the sideline. Everybody got into the game, especially in a game like that. And sometimes they continue to score when you put the JV in, and they continue to score. But you can't tell them not to try to score.
When we came out that second half, I think if you look at the film, you start to see there was a lot of different numbers in the ball game, playing out of position. I was upset about the throwing, Bart. That still bothered me. I don't know what coach was thinking at the time, but I thought we threw the ball more than we should in the second half. I think we should have taken the air out, and we should have just been running the football.
Point in the game where it's 54-0 or whatever it is, and you're basically throwing the ball down the field. Do you have any memory of where those plays were coming from?
Yeah, all our plays were called from the sidelines from either Coach Monica or one of our offensive coordinators. I did at one time think, you know, with 54-0, why we were throwing the football, but being a 17-year-old kid, I wouldn't question Coach Monica. So I just did what they told me to do, and that was it. We never thought we were rubbing it in. We never thought that. However, on film, it didn't look like that. It looked like we did try to run the score up, but by no means did we personally try to do that.
Whether you remember bringing in plays in that game?
That's a good question. I did bring in, and I do remember bringing in plays at the beginning, and then after the first or second quarter, no, because I played the whole game, and then the senior sat out. So I don't know who was bringing in plays at that point. I wasn't.
Against Millburn, we were only left with 13 kids on the team, and our coaches advised us and made the recommendation. They went forward to forfeit that game. That was, again, another huge disappointment.
So they did forfeit that game. I think it's the only game Verona ever forfeited.
It seemed like kind of a natural progression where you're ready to surrender, I guess, after you're outmanned and you don't have enough players or players getting hurt. So not a very good moment when you forfeit a game because you can't suit up enough players.
I felt worse then for the school and the whole program that we had and that the town had growing up than I did losing to 75-0. I mean, you don't forfeit games, but we did. We were down to like 15 guys, but I was one of them.
And I remember when they made that announcement, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know whether to cry, I don't know whether to punch somebody. I was humiliated. And I remember I dropped my head. That's all I could do. I just dropped my head. And it was quiet. No one said a word. And Boris Weller, who was a math teacher, started what sounded like he was reciting a poem. And in the poem, there were the words, "A measure of a man." And when he finished the poem, he was right by my desk. And when he was done, I heard him murmur to me, "Pick your head up, Mr. Zazali." And that was the only time that anybody at that high school reached out to us and to try to comfort us.
Thank everybody for coming many miles in some cases to get here. So this is basically about the 75-0 win for Madison, loss for Verona.
What game finally did you win? The first one?
We never were.
high school.
We never made it.
It's great that Joe Lou actually persisted to put this together. I mean, this is something we've lived with, maybe we didn't talk about it all the time, for 45 years. And
The weight of losing that way, I mean, even if you lost 45-0 or whatever, but losing 75-0, every time I tell somebody, yeah, you played football in high school? Yeah, I played football in high school. How were you guys good? We lost 75-0, and everybody goes, "What?"
We didn't treat Verona any lightly than we treated Milburn. Our scouting was great. We played everything off tendencies. Probably we knew what play you were going to run prior to what you were going to run.
You probably knew what play we were going to run, and we didn't know what play we were going to
That's true. That's true. I was going to say, you probably could have taken us a little more lightly. I would have helped a little bit. You know what I mean? Just a little.
So here we go. You can see this is the actual game film. It is from Madison High School. It's 16 millimeter. It's color film. It was sunny and 75 degrees, and one of our teams enjoyed those weather conditions and one did not.
Good afternoon, sports fans, and welcome to Verona High School field. Madison comes into this game one of the state's top teams. Verona, on the other hand, comes in with a 16-game losing streak. It's hoped that home field advantage will turn things around for the Verona squad.
Now watch this play. Watch this play. That's me.
Yeah.
Watch Spencer hitting me right there. Watch this.
Oh my God!
Look at your feet there.
Let me know if you want me to stop, because I can't stop it.
You can stop it now. We can all go home.
Well, it's still nothing.
You know, it's interesting in thinking of this what would be perceived as a travesty. I didn't have any ill feelings. I didn't have any ill will towards Madison or anything. It was you know, it was a game. It was an athletic competition, and we got our butts beat badly.
We were having calisthenics, and our calisthenics always started was, let's go 9-0, beat Clifford Scott. We beat Clifford Scott, let's go 9-0, beat Hanover Park. Now, we didn't have anything that said, let's go 8-1. That wouldn't work. That wouldn't work.
We were on the opposite end of the spectrum. We had.
We used to start every practice with, let's go 1-8.
I mean, at Star Ledger, would you believe 75-0? And I recall there was a picture, and it was me. It was an arrow pointing to my head. All you saw was my hand, and there was all these people around. Madison guys just came in.
You remember what your snap count was?
It was probably like 1-2 duck.
I remember, like it was yesterday, us coming down after halftime, and we were losing 47-0. And call me a cockeyed optimist. I thought we were still going to win that game. I mean, that's how delusional you become when you're losing. Every week you think we're still going to win. We lose 75-0. We added up what you guys beat us by in 3 years, And it was, what was it?
176 to nothing, I think.
It was like 176. How dare you?
How dare you? For the record, the delusions you had at halftime, I had no such delusions. Madison guys, notice the field, all the grass in it.
Yeah.
It's like a parking lot.
Parking lot, paint, just paint.
Yeah, concrete.
That's the only place I saw you have 2 ambulances.
I really want to ask you guys this question. As you watch the second half, the score was 47-0. Do you feel as though the score was trying to be run up? Watch how many times we throw the ball.
Throwing's a lot.
Right, the question you just asked, how
can't
many
believe
guys, are not on the first team now, though?
Now it's like, now I don't think,
I don't know how
I think now you're second team.
Yeah.
Stop again. Put your hands up. Stop!
There's only one ambulance.
No, right. Oh, the other one's full.
The other one's on the way to Madison Hospital.
And that's it, guys. That's me and Andy were our helmets off. Heads down. 75.
Fading out there.
That was a proverbial butt whooping.
Oh, man.
I'm exhausted just watching.
I know. The funny thing is, it didn't, as bad as we were, you walked out of that locker room, you thought you were going to win that game. You went down there thinking you were going to win the game.
Watching the game film, I can tell you didn't quit. From the very first play to the last play, the same effort was there. You can see that in the film. And I think that's admirable that, to be able to do that. Again, like I said, as a 16 to 17-year-old kid, I think that's one of the things that stood out to me.
Hughes, what did your coach say at halftime?
I don't remember.
I don't remember either.
I don't remember.
I don't remember.
I think there was a lot of silence.
I
I think it was just, there was like, when that silence comes, that's like, it was like a funeral.
There was not a lot to say.
Madison had talent. They weren't just.
You'd be surprised that you had talent. You played for Madison, you would have been an integral part of our deal, whereas at Verona, you didn't. But you guys had talent, and you probably could have played for us. I don't know how good I would have been if I was quarterback in Verona.
You guys won so many games by huge scores. I mean, you beat us 75-0 junior year, 51-0, I think, senior year. What did Coach Monica say when you were winning by that many points?
I mean, it was an easy halftime, but going back to our halftime at Verona, I do remember, sad to say, but a few of the guys saying, hey, we can beat them 100-0. I remember a couple guys saying that.
The last 4 games of our senior year, they brought in Tom Salito, who coached in the 60s. And what you got is we got close games. We had a defense that wasn't on the field 75% of the time. So we were more competitive.
The interesting Madison game, we were getting beat pretty badly at halftime. But at the end of the half, you remember, we had 4 first downs in a row, or something, or 3, whatever.
Well, this is a senior year.
Senior year. And when we got into the halftime, Salito, that was his focus. You asked about what you talk about at halftime. He said, men, you had 3 first downs in a row against one of the best teams in the state. You can capitalize on that. You can build on that. And we're like, oh,
We were expecting to be yelled at like usual, and when he said that, we all were like, we got
3 first downs. We were probably getting yelled at.
That was
And it came from an early age. Madison High School football was just everything, and you didn't want to be that one team that let them down. Coach Monica he was a Marine, and he coached like that. Let's say this: football is not a fun game to practice, even when you're winning. To go out every day in pads and things like that, especially with a coach like Monica.
It's very easy every day when you're having success to put your pads on and go to practice and be there and be loyal to your teammates and to everybody else. It's totally a different thing, when you're in the midst of a losing streak to do that. And I have a lot of respect for you guys for sticking it out and being there and continuing it through.
We're all winners at this table. I think the real losers are the guys that quit the program.
We spend a lot of time in a society now, trying to make everything so perfect that the younger generation, they never have the opportunity to struggle, to really go through a bad time.
Sometimes you want to put 75-0 in the back of your mind, but if you can turn it around and use it for teaching your kids, it was a good thing.
We were talking on the way over here, and we're saying, you never got to know the guys you played against. And it's been a great pleasure I'm sure, for all four of us
Oh,
to
yeah,
meet you
always.
guys. It's been really nice.
Yeah.
Same here. Same here.
Even if it is 47 years later.
God bless you.
It's amazing.
I was thinking about what held us together. For me, I think in many ways it was friendship. I mean, the people we played with were some of my closest friends and still are. And we slogged through it. You know, I didn't have any expectations of winning. I didn't think I was going to lose every game. But our friendships, you know, the people who I lived with, we partied with, we had fun with, that's what kept it together.
When the team was losing, it was a horrible thing to live through. 5 years later, it might have been still an embarrassment. Now, 30 years later, it's a great story.
The Chinese have a saying, they say adversity introduces a man to himself. Well, it did. You didn't know how far you could push yourself until you were pushed.
And only when you get older do you realize what transpired with football, especially the way we were unable to contribute and win. You look back and you say, well, it was a good lesson for us. It gave us the idea how to take care of things when they don't go right.
You get to a job, you get into a familial situation. You know that you've fought through extremely difficult times before, and you survived.
In my travels, I traveled to Western Asia, through Turkey, Iran, Afghanistan, and there were all kinds of warnings when you travel through Afghanistan. Don't ever get off the bus. To see these guys around with beards and rifles from the time the British were there, but it was pretty frightening. And considering going through that and losing 75-0 in a game, you know, the 75-0 didn't seem as bad.
I feel going back to those losing years as a football player at Verona High School, I just had a little bit extra in me as a dad that maybe I tried to push my son. Don't allow yourself to have these negative feelings.
I don't recall anybody in the school system ever, you know, let's have a conversation about this. Let's process this, you know. Never. No one ever said a damn word about it. So we were kind of left to our own devices, and I think we did pretty well, you know, and it's made us, you know, I think the people I still see are, you know, probably would be my friends anyway, but I think this made it a little extra special.
I still retain all those friends from Verona, and you know, we still have a great time. We get together, play golf, go out, do things, and we still have fun talking about the terrible times at Verona football.
In later life, I was faced with a lot of adversity, but not to the consistent degree and over such a long period of time as what we experienced in football. So I always figured if times got tough, it was there, the goods were there.
When you play a game like football, life lessons are supposed to be learned. And I'll tell you, if those guys didn't learn a hard lesson, well, I don't know who did.
Having lost all those games, that was pretty tough to take. But as far as it affecting my life, you know, losing 75-0 and remembering that game helped me at certain times in my life. When things would get bad, I'd say, well, at least we're not losing 75-0.